Okay, here we are in the God Kings, halfway through the third round, third turn, and the Egyptians slid up, grabbing this territory, putting a siege here, and they get a successful siege, removing the garrison from there, and now they control that province. They've got a potential threat up here, but that's much weaker, so that they probably aren't too afraid of it. What they're really worried about is the Hittani coming in and attack, or the Hatti coming in and attacking here. Mitanni, Hatti. Oops, I forgot to put these guys back in their boxes. But one problem with having it on the board, not huge stacks, is I don't notice that I forgot that. But the Mitanni attacked again here. They played their own demonic invocations. And overall, it was a successful battle. Not tremendous, 12 to 19 losses. One thing that I noticed, so historically, a lot of these ancient battles were just blowouts. Two relatively even forces would face off, and one would take minor losses, and that seems to be what happens in the battles, is that minor losses are taken by the winner, but the loser would just be wiped out. Now, on a 5-year period, I'm not sure, because you certainly see, some of the bigger empires later on. I'm not as familiar with this era, and I don't know how much there is, but you certainly see some of the bigger empires later on throwing together another army and another army. So, for example, in Alexander's time, the Persians just came back with army after army. They had a huge empire to restore, but that's not the feeling this game gives. The feeling this game gives is that you've got that army still there. You're not regrouping it. You've got that same army, and it's come out of the battle correctly, and that's a feeling that I think is incorrect, and I can't be positive, but my understanding of the historical period is you didn't have large armies surviving defeat for very long. Alright, well, we'll continue on with the round. And to just finish off that round, we see the Kassites ended up playing population migration. They gave them a big pile of mercenaries, bolster their strength back up. Now, losing the chariots is the big problem, though. The chariots were their army, and they've taken enough losses on them that they don't anymore have that superiority that they once had. They didn't get the advantage of it yet, though. So, and for the Hatti, well, they have a problem. They would love to move this leader, but they don't have a 3-point card. That's been their problem this whole turn. They've been unable to do anything. They used a card to quickly drop a PC marker up here. Question whether that's worth it, or if they should have just done trading to get even more chariots. They're probably going to be playing trade cards pretty soon. In fact, instead of playing a 1-pointer there for that, they're going to pay. I kind of like that card. Yeah, they're going to hold on to that, and they're going to hold that. Nah, they did the right thing. Alright. I was just thinking about, hey, I can grab both these territories, say it's good with a 2-point card, but my 2-point cards are good reactions. Alright, so we move that forward, these come back, and we're ready to rock into the 4th. Looking at the board situation here in the 4th round, the Egyptians didn't feel there was much to gain up here in Hatti itself. They couldn't take the province. They couldn't get the 3 victory points. Actually, that would put them really close to the automatic victory. They'd be at 19, which led them to say, okay, where can I get another one? Could I move in here and take this? Certainly. That would be fairly easy. But then I'd be at risk with attacks coming this way or this way. Moving here, well, the Hatti force looks bigger. It seems like a risk that's just too great to take. Was one other option, using a 3-point card to slide over, and they succeeded. You gotta love car alarms, huh? I used to have those when I was young. Slid over here and managed to get himself a fortified city I don't think I applied the penalty in my mind there. I know I rolled a 6, so it was safe. Yeah. It always makes me want to go out with a baseball bat and just start trashing the thing. And I'm sure people do that. I'm sure, given that car alarms don't give you anything, nobody pays attention to them except to get furious. I'm sure more cars are damaged because of them than not. That are stolen or whatever. Okay, so let's go onward to, let's see, so anyway, I might not have made this attack, but it's a naval move, which means you make a move across the naval thing. You need a 3 card to even do it, which he needed anyway. And once you do it, you can't keep moving. But you can throw a siege up, and they did that, and they got a good roll and took it. That put me over to the Mitanni, who played this Oriental Cruelty card, which is very cool. Gives them 4 PC markers. Normally it would only give 3 because it's, you know, a 3 card. But it gives 4 anywhere within movement range of an army. So they were able to grab PC markers back here. This one kind of far, 1, 2, 3, 4 because of the mountains. But over here as well, and this. And really kind of solidified their hold on that central area without a fight. It looks to me like they could have attacked here and maybe sieged it and taken it in 2 card plays. So maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they should have kept pursuing the Babylonians. They wouldn't have been able to play this card to grab all this, though, and this was a guaranteed point. Probably not a great move, but whatever. Alright, on to the Kassites. And to finish things up for this round, the Kassites did something very odd. They played an invasion card, which could have been used. It was actually something that affects the Mitanni, I think. A barbarian army not in play. Well, actually, the Mitanni aren't near any of the barbarians, but they could have used it to harass someone else. But those don't look terribly powerful. They march out, they count as a neutral, or they show up. They count as a neutral army. Somebody has to actually play to make them do things, and then they get this 1 additional attack, and they can take some victory points away or something. But they're really just a harassment, and it seemed more valuable to use their own card, but they used it for something rather weird. They marched up this way, interception attempt failed, and went into Assur, which didn't even need to be sieged, they just grabbed it. Speaking of which, this didn't even need to be sieged, so I didn't have to roll. Excellent. Okay. Well, I don't know if I had any movement points. I may have cheated, but I need to use a movement point or some kind of card to activate that, so we'll see what happens there. Now, what else? The Hatti would next, and they took kind of a risk. They played one of these cards that they were planning on using as a reaction to prevent Amenhotep from being able to move far, or maybe one of the other Egyptians, but they just never got the chance, and they decided to move forward instead, and they've taken Fitasa and grabbed the province. Again, an interception failed, an attempt there. Okay, so that moves us into that last round, and we're ready to roll. So for opening things up on this last round, the Egyptians played a card to grab control of the couple areas they had that they could. The Mitanni slashed through and made a quick attack on Assur. Surprisingly, as far as I'm concerned, the Babylonians stayed, and not surprisingly, they lost the battle 20-14. That gives another victory point to the Mitanni. This is actually one of the reasons the Mitanni went that way. They could have gone this way and gotten 3 victory points with a successful siege. This way they figured they would have to plow through, but if the Babylonians left, they would get basically 3 victory points with a successful siege. And if they didn't, they got 1 guaranteed, which seemed maybe more valuable, actually. Now, this is actually here. For what it's worth, it's not going to get used again. Why did the Kassites stand and fight? Well, they have this Great King card, which if they had controlled Assyria, along with Kardamiash, whatever their homeland is, then they would have gotten 3 victory points. Well, they've just gotten smacked down for that, and there's not a lot they can really do. We'll see if they can disrupt things with this guy. And they moved up. They can't break up the Mittani territory here. They're still going to get their points for it. But at least they're closer and in the range where they can maybe combine their troops. These guys, their king's army is kind of out of supply at this point. They can't trace down, so they can't get replacement points. That's going to be very painful, and this has really turned out to be a good turn for the Mittani because of that card. For the Hatti, they played a card to generate trade and just took themselves a tribute and a wood point. Looking at, there's nothing they could do. They could move this leader. They still don't have a 3 card. Alright, it's going to go to our victory points, and I'll come back and show what we gained there. Okay, so the big winner there is Egypt with 17 points. And this isn't too shocking. They have a huge amount of territory right now. But what it means is if they could win a couple battles or gain another territory, they're on the verge of that automatic victory. Everybody's got to kind of worry a little bit about them. The problem is the Mittani are tied down with the Babylonians. With the Mittani in place, it's very, very hard for the Babylonians to deal with the Egyptians. It's impossible. For the Mittani to turn and deal with them, can they leave the Babylonians alone? The Babylonians will just reach out and grab everything. Painful situation. Some kind of deal is going to have to be made. If it's not, there's a risk here because the Hatti are not that strong. And let's look at their points. Now they gathered 11. 10 of them are real. One of them's from a victory point card. The Mittani also got 11, but only 8 of them are real. They got 3 off of victories against the Babylonians. So they're not in that tremendously potent situation. And finally, the Babylonians themselves only pulled 7 in. They've got some kind of rich territory down here in the backlands, which is able to generate that without too much risk, really. They're just able to crank that out every turn. Alright, well, I'm going to add those into the totals, and that looks like that's about it here. Oh, turn order I've got to decide. Again, you know, when you're doing poorly, as the Babylonians are, you kind of want to go late. Is there any reason to get a jump? Well, maybe. That's risky. But can he get out of there in time? Oh, again, maybe. He's going to grab the jump on that. And our next are the Hatti and Mittani, who are tied, actually. So we have 13 total versus 21 total. The Hatti get first choice here, and they're going to go last. The Mittani are also going to go late in the game, and that brings it to Egypt in the number 2 spot. Yeah. And got to make choices on discarding cards as well. Egypt has a couple, neither of which they're terribly interested in holding. Granted, they could hose somebody, but they're not really worried about that. And holding a 3-point card isn't terribly valuable for them, except they have the possibility of a new pharaoh who's going to be a 3-pointer. Yeah, maybe, but we'll see. I think they just pitched it. The Hatti are not impressed with their cards. The only one they're kind of liking is the Pest and Pestilence, which could give them a big bonus in a combat. Charge Contained seems a little bit less valuable. Normally a charge doesn't work, but this one, hitting somebody with attrition, they'll throw it. They need big cards. Alright, so everybody got rid of their card, nobody held. That means none of these markers, which are kind of hard to see, should be in place. I'm going to load this one up, and I'll score the total victory points as well.